The wind howled through the pines of Bearclaw Ridge, rattling the weathered boards of the small cabin perched at its edge. Inside, Charlotte and Grace Walker, two sisters who couldn't be more different, stood shoulder to shoulder at the kitchen table, staring down at an envelope smudged with dirt and sealed with wax. Charlotte, 31, had the kind of strength that came from years of hard work and solitude. Her palms were rough from ranch labor, her hair tied back in a no-nonsense braid that matched her unflinching stare. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Grace, 29, was her opposite, bright-eyed, soft-spoken, and forever trying to coax beauty out of broken things. The letter had arrived that morning, hand-delivered by a dusty courier from the small mining town of Silvervale, deep in the Colorado Rockies. "Are you gonna open it or stare it to death?" Grace teased, her voice light but her fingers fidgeting nervously. Charlotte broke the seal. Inside was a single folded page, written in neat, formal script. "To the heirs of Samuel Walker, this notice serves to inform you that upon review of estate records, ownership of the Walker Silver Mine, located in Hollow Ridge Canyon, has transferred to you, Charlotte Walker and Grace Walker, as the last surviving relatives. Be advised, the property is considered unsafe and has been condemned since 1989, following multiple collapses. Access is at your own risk. Henry C. Doolin, ESQ, Silvervale Legal Office." Grace let out a small gasp. "Wait, the old family mine? I thought that was gone. Didn't Dad say it collapsed before we were born?" Charlotte folded the letter carefully. "He said it wasn't worth saving, but maybe there's something left." The sisters exchanged a look that carried years of unspoken memories. Nights spent listening to their father talk about the mountain's heart, stories of veins of silver that once made their great-grandfather a legend in these parts. "Should we go see it?" Grace asked, eyes shining. Charlotte hesitated. The mine had taken their family's fortune, maybe even their father's sanity. But curiosity was a stubborn ember, and Grace's optimism had a way of fanning it. "Fine," Charlotte said finally. "We'll drive up tomorrow, but we take Duke." At the mention of his name, their golden retriever lifted his head from near the fireplace, tail thumping. Duke had been with them through blizzards, droughts, and heartbreak. If anyone could sniff out trouble or treasure, it was him. By dawn, the truck was packed with flashlights, rope, first aid kits, and enough canned beans for 3 days. The sky over Bearclaw Ridge was painted in pale oranges and pinks as they began the long climb toward Hollow Ridge Canyon. The road twisted through abandoned mining country, where rusted rail cars and sagging timber shafts spoke of fortunes long lost. Grace leaned out the window, hair whipping in the wind. "It's kind of beautiful, in a haunted way." Charlotte grunted, focused on the rocky road ahead. Haunted's one word for it. They arrived at the mine entrance by mid-afternoon. What remained was heartbreaking. A collapsed wooden arch, warning signs half buried in weeds, and a chain-link fence long since broken. Grace walked ahead, her boots crunching gravel. "This is it, the Walker Mine." Charlotte's gaze swept over the dark maw in the earth. "Looks like a grave." Duke trotted forward, nose twitching. He paused by the entrance, sniffed the ground, and whined softly. "Hey, boy, do you smell something?" Grace said gently. Duke barked once, sharp, urgent. The sisters followed his lead to the right side of the collapsed entrance. There, hidden behind a tangle of dead vines, was a small gap, just wide enough for a person to crawl through. Charlotte squatted down, shining her flashlight into the blackness. Wooden beams were splintered but held. The air smelled faintly metallic, like old coins and dust. Grace crouched beside her. "You're thinking what I'm thinking?" "Probably," Charlotte said grimly. "And it's probably stupid." Still, she slung her pack over her shoulder and wriggled through the gap. Grace followed, with Duke right behind. Inside, the air was cool and heavy. Their flashlights cut narrow cones of light through the gloom, illuminating walls streaked with minerals that shimmered faintly. "It's like stepping back in time," Grace whispered. Charlotte ran her hand over a wooden support beam. "Feels solid enough, for now." They advanced slowly, ducking under fallen timbers. Duke stayed close, occasionally pausing to sniff the ground. After 20 minutes, they reached a fork, 2 tunnels, both disappearing into shadow. "Left or right?" Grace asked. Duke answered before either could decide. He trotted toward the left tunnel, tail up, barking once. Charlotte frowned. "Guess we follow the expert." They walked for another 100 yards until the tunnel opened into a small chamber. There, half buried under rubble, was a rusted mine cart and an old wooden crate stamped with faded letters. Property of Walker Mining Company, 1896. Grace knelt beside it, brushing off dirt. "You think there's anything inside?" Charlotte pried it open with a crowbar. Inside were old mining ledgers, brittle maps, and a few chunks of dull gray rock. Nothing that screamed fortune. Grace sighed. Maybe Dad was right, just ghosts and dust. But Duke wasn't done. He pawed at the far wall, whining again. Charlotte aimed her flashlight where he scratched. Something metallic glinted beneath the dirt. She knelt and brushed away debris until the light revealed a small iron hatch set into the stone. It looked like a maintenance panel, but far older than the rest of the structure. Charlotte breathed. "Come look at this." They worked together to pull it open, the hinges groaning after decades of silence. Behind it was a narrow shaft descending straight down into darkness. A faint draft of cold air drifted upward, carrying a strange smell, something mineral, but also clean, almost electric. "Holy hell," Grace whispered. "It goes deeper." Charlotte leaned over the edge, shining her flashlight. Way deeper, maybe an old lower level they sealed off. Duke barked again, tail wagging as he sniffed at the opening. Grace looked at her sister. "We can't just leave it." Charlotte's jaw tightened. "We're not prepared for this." "Then we come back tomorrow, with rope, lights, the works." Charlotte hesitated. Then she nodded. "Tomorrow." As they turned to leave, Grace cast one last look at the shaft. The light from her flashlight caught on something deep within, a flash of silver, faint but unmistakable. She froze. "Charlotte, did you see that?" Charlotte turned back, but the gleam was gone. "Probably pyrite, fool's gold," she said. But Grace wasn't so sure. That night, back at the cabin, the storm rolled in heavy and wild. Rain hammered the tin roof, and lightning flashed over the ridges. Charlotte sat by the fireplace, maps spread across the table, tracing the outline of Hollow Ridge Canyon. None of these old blueprints show a lower shaft. Whatever's down there, it wasn't supposed to exist. Grace sat opposite, sketching the iron hatch from memory. Maybe that's why it was sealed. Dad always said our great-grandfather went missing down there. Charlotte looked up sharply. "He said that?" "Yeah, he told me once when I was little. Said Samuel Walker followed the silver vein that whispered, whatever that means." Charlotte frowned. "He always talked in riddles." "Or truths we didn't understand yet," Grace said softly. Duke lifted his head suddenly, growling low. "What is it, boy?" Charlotte asked. The wind outside howled again, but this time it wasn't just wind. It was a distant rumbling, like something shifting deep in the earth. The cabin shuddered once, and a few cups rattled off the counter. Charlotte and Grace exchanged a look of dread. "That came from the canyon," Charlotte said. Grace swallowed. "You think it collapsed? Or something woke up down there?" Charlotte muttered, staring into the fire. Duke whined, then padded to the door, scratching to be let out. Charlotte opened it. The storm had passed, leaving the world silver under the moonlight. Duke bounded out, barking once toward the ridge as if to call them to follow. "Charlotte," Grace whispered, stepping to her sister's side. "Look, far off in the direction of Hollow Ridge Canyon, a faint blue glow shimmered against the mountain's edge, soft, steady, and impossibly deep." Charlotte, the breath caught. "That's right where the mine is." The glow pulsed once, twice. The morning after the storm broke clear and cold. Mist coiled around the treetops as sunlight spilled across Bearclaw Ridge, turning the wet grass into rivers of glass. The world felt fresh, but beneath that stillness was a pulse of unease neither sister could shake. Charlotte was already loading the truck with climbing gear, lanterns, ropes, and food. She moved with the same steady purpose she always had, but her eyes were sharper, her jaw clenched tighter than usual. Grace stepped out of the cabin, bundled in a flannel jacket, a thermos of coffee in one hand, and Duke trotting beside her. "You didn't sleep, did you?" she asked quietly. Charlotte didn't look up from tightening a rope coil. "Didn't try to." Grace offered the thermos. "Then at least drink this before you fall over." Charlotte smirked. "You sound like Mom." "Someone has to," Grace said, smiling faintly. "She'd say you get that stubborn streak from Dad anyway." Charlotte paused, then glanced at the maps spread across the hood of the truck. "Maybe I do, but Dad never had to deal with cursed mines and glowing mountains." Grace climbed into the passenger seat. Yet here we are. The drive to Hollow Ridge Canyon felt longer that day. The storm had torn branches down and washed out part of the road, forcing Charlotte to crawl the truck through slick mud and crumbling rock. When they finally reached the mine entrance, the world was eerily still. No birds, no wind, just the distant drip of water echoing from the dark mouth of the mountain. The gap they had crawled through yesterday was half collapsed again, as though the storm had tried to bury it for good. Grace crouched down and brushed away the mud. "You sure this is safe?" Charlotte checked her flashlight and clipped a rope to her belt. "Not even close." They widened the gap with a pickaxe and crawled inside, Duke following eagerly. The mine smelled stronger today, metallic, damp, electric. As they passed the fork, Duke led them left again, tail wagging, nose to the ground. "Smart boy," Grace whispered, patting his head. "He remembers." When they reached the hidden chamber, the iron hatch waited for them like an open mouth. The cold air pouring from it was sharper now, and deeper down, that faint, unnatural blue glow shimmered faintly. Charlotte uncoiled their rope and checked her harness. "You stay up here and manage the line." Grace shook her head. "No chance. We go together." Charlotte hesitated. "Grace, I'm not letting you go down there alone. You do the same for me." Duke barked once as if agreeing. Charlotte sighed. "Fine, but if that shaft starts to shift, you climb first. No arguments." "You worry too much." "And you don't worry enough," Charlotte muttered, fastening the carabiner. They dropped a light stick into the shaft. It fell for a long, long moment, then hit bottom with a distant clatter. The green glow barely touched the walls on the way down. 30 feet, maybe more. We'll take it slow. They began their descent, their headlamps flickering off jagged walls slicked with condensation. The silence was immense, only the sound of their breathing and the occasional crumble of rock. Halfway down, Grace's boot slipped on a damp edge. Charlotte braced the rope instantly. "I've got you!" she shouted. Grace steadied herself, heart pounding. Maybe a little slower? When they finally reached the bottom, the ground beneath their boots was different. Smooth, almost polished stone. It didn't feel like natural rock at all. A narrow tunnel stretched ahead, walls glinting faintly blue as if the stone itself breathed light. "What is this place?" Grace whispered. Charlotte swept her flashlight along the wall. The blue glow shimmered under the light, tiny veins of crystal running through the rock, pulsing faintly like living veins. "It's some kind of mineral deposit, but I've never seen anything like—" Her voice caught. The stone was warm. Grace crouched beside her. "Warm?" Charlotte nodded. "And vibrating, just slightly." Duke padded ahead, sniffing the air. Then he froze, tail stiff, ears perked. His growl rumbled low. "What is it, boy?" Grace asked softly. He barked once, then twice, and started running. "Duke!" Grace shouted, sprinting after him. Charlotte swore under her breath and followed. The tunnel widened into a cavern so large their lights couldn't reach the far wall. And there, in the center of it all, was a pool of crystal-clear water, glowing faintly blue from within. Duke stood at its edge, staring into the depths. Grace approached slowly. "It's beautiful." Charlotte frowned, crouching beside the pool. "This is groundwater, maybe, but the color—" Before she could finish, something caught her eye. Embedded in the stone just above the pool was a seam of pure silver, thick and unbroken, shimmering under the light like frozen moonlight. "Grace, do you see that?" "Oh, I see it. That vein alone could be worth millions." "Then we found it! The Walker vein! It's real!" Charlotte smiled despite herself. "Looks like Duke found our fortune." But then Duke began barking again, not in excitement, but in warning. He backed away from the pool, ears flat, tail low. "Charlotte," Grace whispered, her voice trembling. "The water's moving." The sisters froze. Ripples spread across the glowing pool, slow at first, then faster. The light within the water brightened, swirling upward like a storm forming under glass. Charlotte grabbed Grace's arm. "Back, now!" They stumbled away just as the water bulged and a surge of blue light exploded upward, blinding them both. When Charlotte's vision cleared, the pool was calm again, but the air was charged with energy, a faint hum reverberating through the rock. "What the hell was that?" Charlotte whispered. Grace shook her head, eyes wide. "I don't know, but I think it woke something up." They decided to mark the site and head back to the surface before the tunnel became unstable. When Charlotte started climbing, Grace lingered, looking once more at the pool. Something about it tugged at her, like a whisper, soft and melodious, coming from deep below. "Charlotte, come on, let's go!" Grace blinked, shaking herself free from the trance, and began climbing. Duke followed, reluctant, looking back once before following his humans. When they emerged into daylight again, the wind had changed, colder, sharper, carrying the scent of rain even though the sky was clear. Charlotte sat against the rocks, breathing hard. "You saw it too, right? That flash?" Grace nodded. "And the silver vein! Charlotte, that's it! That's our family's legacy!" Charlotte looked out towards the ridges, her face unreadable. Legacy or curse, we'll find out soon enough. Duke barked suddenly, turning his head towards the trees. His hackles rose, a deep growl rolling from his chest. Charlotte stood up fast. "What is it, boy?" From the shadows between the pines, movement flickered. A figure, tall and still, watching them. Then another, and another. "Charlotte, we're not alone." 3 men stepped out of the trees, rough and weathered, dressed in work jackets and mud-cucked boots. The one in front, tall, gray-bearded with a scar across his cheek, gave a thin smile. "Well, looks like the Walker girls finally found Granddaddy's hole." Charlotte's hand went to the hammer on her belt. "Who are you?"
The man chuckled. "Name's Earl Doolin. My granddaddy was the foreman who sealed this mine shut in '89. Seems we've got some shared history." Grace stiffened. "Doolin, Like Henry Doolin, the lawyer who sent the letter? Family business, Earl said. We handle old properties, especially ones that ain't meant to be disturbed. Charlotte narrowed her eyes. You've been watching us. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Just making sure you didn't dig up something dangerous. Earl took a step closer. You found it, didn't you? The blue light. Charlotte didn't answer. Earl's grin widened. Then you best listen close, Missy. That light ain't silver. It ain't gold. It's something older. Something that's been sleeping in this mountain long before your family stuck a pick in it. Grace stepped forward, trembling. You're saying the mine's cursed? Earl's eyes darkened. I'm saying your dog just woke it up. They turned toward Duke, who now stood by the hatch staring down into the shaft again. His fur was bristled, his tail stiff. Charlotte, Grace whispered. He's hearing something. Charlotte knelt beside him. What is it, boy? Then, faint but clear, from deep within the shaft came the sound of metal scraping on stone. Slow, deliberate, echoing up from the depths. Duke whimpered, backing away. Earl spat on the ground. You two need to walk away. Whatever's down there ain't worth 22 million, or your lives. Charlotte's gaze hardened. Maybe not to you. Earl looked at her for a long moment, then shook his head. Then you're as stubborn as your father. God help you, Walker. He turned and disappeared into the trees, his men following. The sisters stood in silence, the wind carrying only the faint hum from beneath their feet, like the heartbeat of the mountain itself. Grace whispered, Charlotte, what if he's right? Charlotte stared at the mine entrance, jaw set. Then we'll find out before anyone else does. She looked down at Duke, whose eyes glowed faintly blue in the fading light. And for the first time in her life, Charlotte Walker wasn't sure if her dog was still just a dog. The morning sun rose pale and cold over Bearclaw Ridge, cutting through a low fog that hugged the valley floor. Charlotte emerged behind her, carrying 2 mugs of coffee and looking like she hadn't slept at all. You're up early again, she said softly. Charlotte didn't take her eyes off the horizon. Didn't sleep. Grace handed her a mug. Neither did Duke. At her words, the golden retriever padded onto the porch. His fur caught the dawn light, and for a fleeting second, Charlotte thought she saw it again, that faint blue shimmer beneath his eyes, like reflected moonlight. You sure he's okay? Charlotte asked, kneeling beside him. He's fine, Grace said, though her voice lacked conviction. He's just been listening, staring at the ridge. Charlotte frowned. Listening to what? Grace hesitated. The mountain. Charlotte looked at her sharply. Grace! I know how it sounds, Grace said quickly, but ever since we got back I keep hearing this low hum at night, like something's alive under us. Charlotte sipped her coffee, eyes narrowing. Earl Doolin said we woke something up. Grace crossed her arms. And you believe him now? I believe that the mountain's changed since we went down there. They stood in silence for a long moment, the forest waking around them. Finally, Charlotte spoke. We need to go back, but this time we're prepared. Grace blinked. After everything? After what he said, you still want to go back? Charlotte turned toward the truck, determination flashing in her eyes. Whatever's under that mine, it's part of our family story, and I'm not letting fear or superstition keep us from the truth. Grace sighed, glancing down at Duke. Then I guess we're going. By mid-morning, they were back at Hollow Ridge loaded with fresh gear, headlamps, climbing harnesses, portable oxygen tanks, and a rugged camera to document their findings. The air felt different today, heavier, charged. The trees around the mine entrance seemed to lean inward as though listening. Charlotte clipped the ropes to her harness. We'll descend past the pool this time. There has to be another chamber below it. Grace adjusted her backpack. If there's another level, maybe it's where the old miners struck the original vein. Or where they buried it, Charlotte said grimly. They crawled through the narrow gap again, Duke trotting ahead. The mine seemed even darker than before, and the faint blue veins in the walls glowed brighter now, casting ghostly reflections. Charlotte, Grace whispered, the light's stronger. Charlotte nodded. It's reacting to something, maybe to us. When they reached the hidden chamber, the pool shimmered softly, its blue light dancing against the walls. Duke walked right up to the edge and sat, staring into the water. His reflection rippled, glowing faintly. Whatever this is, it's not just silver. It's alive. Charlotte knelt, pulled out a small geological pick and chipped a fragment of the glowing stone near the pool. The shard pulsed faintly in her hand. Grace leaned close. Does it feel warm again? Charlotte nodded. And vibrating, like before. She placed the shard into a sample bag, her hand steady but her breath uneven. Then Duke lifted his head and barked, once, sharp and urgent, before bounding toward the far wall. "Duke!" Grace called, following. He stopped in front of a collapsed section of stone, pawing furiously at the rubble. Charlotte joined her, brushing away loose rock. The beam of her flashlight caught something metallic beneath the debris. "Hold on, there's something buried here." Together they cleared the rubble until a half-rotted wooden sign came free. The faded words carved into it sent chills through both of them. Lower shaft, sealed, 1896. Grace swallowed hard. The year Samuel Walker disappeared. Charlotte stared at the sign. So this is where it happened. They cleared the last of the rubble and uncovered a small passageway, its wooden support still barely intact. Beyond it, a dark staircase spiraled downward into unknown depths. Charlotte tightened her grip on the flashlight. "You ready?" Grace hesitated only a second. "Let's find out what he found." The staircase groaned under their boots as they descended, dust swirling in their light beams. The air grew colder, and that low hum Grace had heard at night was now unmistakable, a faint vibration that seemed to come from within the rock itself. Halfway down, Grace whispered, "Do you feel that?" Charlotte nodded. "Yeah, like the mountains breathing." At the bottom, they stepped into a vast chamber that took their breath away. The walls shimmered with the same blue mineral, but here it formed massive crystal formations that jutted from the ground like frozen lightning. The air was warmer here, almost metallic, and the faint sound of trickling water echoed in the distance. Grace turned in slow awe. "This is incredible." Charlotte shone her light on one of the crystals. Inside she saw something glinting, not silver, but gold. Layers of precious metal intertwined with the glowing veins, shimmering like woven fire. "Grace," Charlotte breathed, "do you know what this is worth?" Grace smiled faintly. "Maybe not in dollars." Charlotte frowned. "You're not thinking—" "I'm thinking. This isn't just ore. It's like the mountain itself made something new, a fusion of metals and light." Before Charlotte could reply, Duke began barking again, facing the far side of the chamber. They followed his gaze and froze. Half buried under a pile of rock was a skeletal figure, its rusted mining helmet still clinging to what had once been a skull. In its bony hand was a small leather pouch, perfectly preserved despite the decades. Grace knelt up and reached for it. "Charlotte, do you think—" "Careful," Charlotte warned, but Grace had already untied the pouch. Inside were a few dull stones, except they weren't dull at all. When Grace held them to the light, each one glowed softly, the same electric blue as the pool. Charlotte took one, rolling it between her fingers. "They're the same mineral. He must have found the source." Grace's voice trembled. This was Samuel Walker. Charlotte's chest tightened. He died down here trying to protect it. They stood in silence, the hum of the mountain pulsing around them like a heartbeat. Then suddenly the ground trembled. A deep rumble rolled through the chamber and cracks began spraying through the walls. "Charlotte!" Grace shouted. "The crystals are shaking! Grab the samples! Move!" Charlotte ordered. They scrambled up the staircase as chunks of rock crashed around them. Dust choked the air. Duke barked furiously, racing ahead toward the upper tunnel. When they reached the pool chamber again, the glow was blinding, the entire room pulsing with light. The water turned violently, as if boiling from within. Grace stumbled, dropping one of the glowing stones into the pool. It vanished instantly, and the light dimmed. "Charlotte!" she gasped. "It reacted to it." Charlotte shielded her eyes. "We have to get out. Now!" They crawled through the gap just as a tunnel behind them collapsed in a thunderous roar. Outside, sunlight hit their faces as they tumbled into open air, coughing and gasping. The mountain fell silent again. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Grace whispered, "We could have died." Charlotte nodded slowly, "But we didn't, and we're bringing this to town." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the small glowing shard she'd taken earlier. Its light was faint now, fading but still alive. Grace stared at it, her eyes full of awe and fear. If that's what Samuel found, it's worth more than silver, more than gold. Charlotte looked toward the horizon. Then we're sitting on something worth at least 22 million, maybe more. Duke barked once, tail wagging weakly as though he understood. But deep within the mountain, far below the buried chambers, something pulsed again. Once, twice, answering the shard in Charlotte's hand. The hum returned, softer this time, like a whisper carried on the wind. Grace shivered. Charlotte, what if it's calling to us? Charlotte stared down at the glowing fragment, her fingers tightening around it. Then next time, she said quietly, we find out what it wants. By the time the Walker sisters reached Silvervale, the sky had turned a hard gray, heavy with the promise of another storm. The mining town, once booming with life, now sat. Grace glanced at Duke, who sat in the back seat, head on his paws. You sure about this? Charlotte tightened her grip on the small lockbox in her lap. Inside, the glowing shard pulsed faintly through the metal, like a heartbeat. If anyone can tell us what this stuff is, it's Kellar. Grace frowned. Or he'll tell everyone in town before we can even breathe. Charlotte gave her a sideways look. Then we'll make sure he doesn't. Dr. Kellar was a tall, wiry man with silver hair and a magnifier hanging from a chain around his neck. When they entered, he looked up from his desk, blinking behind thick glasses. Well, if it isn't Charlotte Walker. Haven't seen you since your father brought in that quartz vein 20 years ago. Charlotte nodded. We found something in the old family mine. Kellar raised a brow. That death trap in Hollow Ridge? I thought it was sealed. It was, Grace said quietly. We unsealed part of it. Charlotte set the lockbox on the counter and opened it. The room filled with a faint blue glow. Kellar leaned forward, eyes wide. Good Lord! The shard pulsed faintly, lighting the dust in the air like fireflies. Don't touch it, Charlotte warned. Kellar ignored her and reached for a pair of tweezers, lifting the stone into the light. He turned it slowly, studying it through his magnifier. The glow seemed to brighten at his touch. He muttered under his breath, composition, unknown matrix, metallic crystalline structure. It's not reacting to air oxidation. English, Doc, Charlotte said. Kellar looked up, his voice trembling slightly. This mineral shouldn't exist. Grace frowned. What do you mean? I mean, there's no record of anything like it in any geological catalog. Not in Colorado, not anywhere. He pulled out a device that resembled a small handheld spectrometer and pointed it at the shard. The readout flickered, then froze. The machine beeped once, then went dark. Kellar blinked. It overloaded the analyzer. Charlotte folded her arms. So it's valuable? Kellar gave a shaky laugh. Valuable? If it's real, if this isn't some elaborate hoax, it could be worth tens of millions of dollars. But it's not just about the money. This is something new, something alive, in a way minerals aren't supposed to be. Grace took a step back, uneasy. Alive? Kellar nodded. Feel it. The vibration. That's not residual heat. It's generating its own frequency. Low, rhythmic, almost biological. Charlotte exchanged a glance with Grace. We noticed that down in the mine. Kellar carefully set the shard down. You said this came from the old Walker mine? Charlotte nodded. Lower shaft, a chamber under to collapse. Kellar frowned deeply. That shaft was sealed for a reason, Charlotte. There were stories, strange lights, men who came back sick. Your great-grandfather was one of them. Grace's heart skipped. You knew about Samuel Walker? Everyone in town did. They said he went mad near the end, talked about voices in the stone and silver that spoke. He claimed the mountain had a heart and that he had found it. Charlotte's expression hardened. He wasn't mad. He found this. Kellar gave a slow nod. Maybe he did, but I'd be careful where you take it next. If the Doolins catch wind of this. At that moment, the office door creaked open. Earl Doolin stood in the doorway, hat dripping rain, eyes sharp as knives. Two of his men flanked him, boots thudding against the wooden floor. Well, looks like I showed up just in time. Charlotte stiffened. You followed us. Didn't have to. Word travels fast in a small town. Earl's gaze dropped to the glowing shard on Keller's counter. So that's what you dug up. Keller stepped protectively in front of the stone. Mr. Doolin, this is private. Earl cut him off. Private nothing. That mine's cursed. You two girls don't know what you got your hands on. Charlotte glared. We know exactly what we found, and we're not handing it over. Earl smiled thinly. You think this is about money? You've got no idea. That stuff isn't silver. It's poison. You get too close for too long, it'll start to change you. Grace's stomach dropped. Change us? Earl nodded. Men who mined it back in '89 started hearing things, seeing things. Then their skin went cold and their eyes... He stopped, his face tightening. They didn't stay human for long. Charlotte stepped forward, voice firm. You're lying. Earl met her gaze. Am I? Take a good look at your dog next time the light hits him. Duke growled low, stepping between Earl and the sisters. Keller glanced uneasily at the dog and froze. Charlotte? His eyes. The blue shimmer was visible again, bright and unnatural. Grace kneeled beside Duke, touching his head. He's fine. He's just... Duke whined, pressing against her hand, as if trying to warn her. Earl sighed. You can fight it if you want, but the mountain doesn't give back what it takes. That glow gets in your blood, in your bones. You'll feel it soon enough. Charlotte's fists clenched. We're done here. She shoved the shard back into the lockbox and followed her sister toward the door. Earl stepped aside, eyes cold. When you start hearing the mountain whisper, don't say I didn't warn you. Outside, the rain had turned to sleet. Charlotte tossed the lockbox into the truck and slammed the door. Her hands were trembling. Grace looked at her, voice soft. You believe him, don't you? Charlotte shook her head. No, I believe he wants to scare us off. He probably wants the claim for himself. But what if... I don't care if it sings lullabies, Charlotte snapped. We found something no one else did. I'm not giving it up. Grace fell silent. From the back seat, Duke whimpered softly, curling up with his head against the metal box. That night, the storm hit in full. Thunder rolled across the ridge, shaking the cabin's windows. Charlotte sat at the kitchen table, the lockbox open before her. The shard glowed faintly, casting ripples of light across the walls. Grace leaned in the doorway. You're still studying it? Charlotte didn't look up. I can't stop thinking about what Kellar said. It's not natural, but what if it's something new? What if it could power something, change things? Grace frowned. You sound like Dad. Charlotte glanced up sharply. And what's wrong with that? He chased the mountain secret until it broke him, Grace said softly. Don't let it do the same to you. Charlotte's jaw tightened. You don't understand. This could save us, Grace. The ranch, the debts, everything. Grace looked at her sister, worry clouding her face. And what if it costs more than that? Duke suddenly raised his head, ears pricked. The hum returned, faint, steady, rising from under the floorboards. The shard glowed brighter, pulsing in time with the sound. Grace took a step back. Charlotte, it's reacting again. Charlotte leaned closer. It's calling. The light swelled, filling the room, then, just as suddenly, went dark. The hum faded. Charlotte and Grace stood frozen, the only sound, their own ragged breathing. Then, Duke let out a soft, almost human whine. Charlotte turned to him and froze. A faint blue pattern now pulsed under his fur, like veins of light moving beneath his skin. Grace covered her mouth. Oh my God! Charlotte whispered, It's in him. Outside, lightning struck the ridge, and for a moment, the whole mountain glowed the same blue as the shard. The cabin was silent, except for Duke's low growl and the faint hum that seemed to echo from the lockbox. The glow beneath his fur pulsed in rhythm with the shard inside, like a heartbeat syncing to some unknown frequency.
Grace stayed close to him, her hand resting lightly on his back. "Charlotte, we need to be careful," she whispered. Charlotte didn't respond. She sat at the table, staring at the shard, her fingers twitching toward it again, despite every warning Earl had given her. There was a warmth that emanated from the crystal that seemed to call to her, beckoning her closer. "Charlotte," Grace's voice cut through the fog in her mind. "Are you even listening?" Charlotte looked up, her eyes slightly glazed. I hear it," she admitted quietly. "It's like a voice, a low hum. I can feel it in my bones." Grace swallowed. "I told you, it's not just minerals. It's alive." Charlotte nodded slowly, a mixture of fear and fascination in her eyes. "It wants something. I don't know what yet, but I think it's calling us." Duke barked suddenly, spinning in a circle and scratching at the floorboards. The pulsing beneath his fur intensified, spreading across his chest like veins of electric blue light. Grace gasped. "Charlotte, look at him!" Charlotte stood and kneeled beside the dog, placing her hand on his head. The warmth of the glowing veins spread to her fingers. A shiver ran through her body, not unpleasant, but electrifying, as though the mineral inside him was sharing its power. "Do you feel that?" Charlotte whispered. Grace nodded, her eyes wide. "It's in him, and it's affecting you too." Charlotte's hand trembled. "It's not hurting me. It's changing me."
The hum grew louder. Duke barked again, and Charlotte's vision blurred, the edges of the cabin melting into a swirl of blue light. She could hear faint whispers, indistinct, melodic, like water running over stones, but forming words just beyond comprehension. She staggered back, clutching her head. "Grace, it's speaking!" Grace grabbed her arm. "Charlotte, focus. Don't let it take you." Charlotte blinked, taking deep breaths. Slowly, the whispering faded, leaving only the pulsing light in Duke and the shard on the table. Her vision cleared, but her heart was racing. It wants us to go back," she said finally. "To the mine, to the source." Grace's face paled. "You mean deeper than yesterday?" Charlotte nodded. "I think it knows something we don't, something the Doolins never wanted anyone to find." Duke barked, tail wagging slightly, as if affirming her words. By mid-morning, the sisters were packed again for the journey back to Hollowedge Canyon. The air outside was crisp, the snow line creeping down from the peaks. The mountains seemed alive, humming faintly beneath their feet. "I don't like this," Grace said quietly, adjusting her pack. "Ever since the shard touched Charlotte, the mountain, it's different. We're different." Charlotte ignored her, eyes on the ridge. "We're close. I can feel it. We're on the right path." Duke ran ahead, nose to the ground, barking periodically as if warning them to hurry. When they reached the mine entrance, Earl Dooland and his men were waiting. They stepped out of the trees silently, rain dripping from their hats, eyes cold. "You didn't learn your lesson yesterday," Earl said, voice low. "Leave the shard. Walk away." Charlotte set the lockbox down, opening it just enough for him to see the glowing shard inside. "We're not leaving anything behind. Not now, not ever." Earl's eyes narrowed. "Then you're asking for trouble. That thing isn't a mineral. It's a force. And the mountain doesn't forgive trespassers." Charlotte stood firm, placing a hand on Duke. The dog growled low, veins glowing brighter than ever. Charlotte felt it too, the hum spreading into her chest, into her arms, warming her from the inside. "Then bring it on," she said. "We're ready." Earl cursed under his breath and backed away, realizing Charlotte wouldn't be intimidated this time. Inside the mine, the sisters followed the hidden staircase down to the lower chamber. The air pulsed with energy, vibrating through their bones. The blue crystals shimmered, and the pool's surface rippled as if breathing. Duke ran ahead and stopped at the far end, sniffing at the wall. Charlotte and Grace followed, heartbeats echoing in the cavern. Then Grace gasped. "Charlotte, look at the wall." Embedded in the stone were veins of glowing blue mineral forming patterns, intricate, almost geometric, like a language. The whispers returned, faint but audible now. Charlotte pressed her hand to the wall. The energy surged into her, and the hum became a melody she could understand. Words formed in her mind. "The heart awakens,
protect the vain. Only the worthy may claim. Charlotte shivered. It's communicating with you. Charlotte nodded slowly. It wants guardians. Not thieves, not destroyers. Guardians. Duke barked again, circling the pool. The glowing veins under his fur pulsed in perfect rhythm with the wall. It was clear the dog had been chosen too. Grace reached out tentatively. Charlotte, if it wants guardians, does that mean it's choosing us? Charlotte felt the pulse in her chest intensify. Yes, and it's not a choice we can refuse. They stood there, the cave alive around them, the whispers wrapping their minds in melodies of silver, light, and power. The mountain itself had awakened, and it had chosen the Walker sisters. Charlotte clenched the glowing shard. We need to understand it, learn its rules. Otherwise, it could destroy us. Grace nodded hard. Or change us forever. Duke barked once, fierce and protective. The three of them stood in the chamber, the glow illuminating the darkness, a family bound to a mountain secret older than any living memory. Above ground, the wind howled over Bearclaw Ridge. Deep inside, the Walker mind pulsed like a living heart, waiting for the sisters to unlock its final secret. And far below, in the deepest shadow of the lower chamber, something shifted, as if the mountain itself was smiling. The wind tore across Bearclaw Ridge as the sisters climbed back into the truck, Duke panting heavily beside them. The glow from the shard pulsed faintly in the lockbox on the seat, and Charlotte could feel the hum radiating from it through her fingers. Grace glanced at her sister. Charlotte, that thing, it's changing you. Charlotte ignored her, eyes on the road. I can feel it too. It's not just power, it's knowledge. The mine is teaching us something. Grace frowned. Teaching us? Or controlling us? Charlotte didn't answer immediately. She clenched her jaw, fighting the thrill and fear coursing through her veins. We'll find out soon enough. Duke whined, jumping into the back seat. The glowing veins under his fur had grown more vivid, the blue light now flowing in patterns across his chest and shoulders. Is it in him, too? Grace whispered. Charlotte nodded slowly. He's part of it now, and so are we. Over the next few days, they returned to Hollow Ridge Mine twice more, each trip revealing more about the lower chambers and the glowing crystals. Each time, the mountain's hum grew stronger and Duke's glow intensified. On the fourth descent, the sisters discovered the real secret of the Walker vein, a central crystal formation, massive and towering, emitting the blue light in pulsing waves like a heartbeat. Charlotte approached it cautiously, hands trembling. Grace, this is it. This must be the source. Grace stepped forward. The heart of the mountain? Charlotte nodded. And it's alive. I can feel it vibrating in my chest, like it's trying to communicate. Duke barked, running in circles around the formation. The light from his veins flared, almost blinding. Charlotte reached out to touch the central crystal. Immediately, the hum intensified. Knowledge, strange, vivid visions flowed into her mind. Maps of hidden tunnels, veins of silver intertwined with the glowing mineral, and a series of warnings about the Doolin's ancestors who had tried to exploit the mine. Charlotte gasped. Grace, it's showing me everything. The mine, the veins, the history. It knows who we are, and it's testing us. Grace's eyes widened. Testing? How? Charlotte looked down at Duke. He's the key. The mountain trusts him, and now it's trusting us. The glow from the shard intensified, then suddenly shifted. The pulse quickened, and the floor beneath their feet trembled. Grace grabbed Charlotte's arm. What's happening? Charlotte's heart raced. It's reacting to us, to our intentions. If we're here for greed, it'll reject us. If we're here to protect it, it will accept us. Duke barked again, this time a long, steady note, as if affirming Charlotte's thoughts. Back above ground, Earl Doolin and his men had been watching. They had learned quickly that the Walker sisters were not easily intimidated. Earl's eyes narrowed as he approached the mine.
"You two are playing with forces you don't understand," he warned. "The mountain gives and it takes, and when it takes, it doesn't give back." Charlotte stepped forward, hand resting on Duke. "We understand more than you think, Earl, and we're not afraid." Earl's jaw tightened. "Then you'll see soon enough what happens when you meddle with the heart of Hollow Ridge." That night, back at the cabin, the sisters studied the glowing shard and the knowledge it had transmitted to Charlotte. Maps, tunnels, and mineral samples detailed secrets lost for over a century. They realized that the Walker mine contained far more than silver. It held a unique, self-generating crystalline formation with untold value. But along with the wealth came the warning. The crystal demands guardianship. Anyone who sought it for greed alone risked destruction. Grace shivered. "Charlotte, do you realize what this means?" Charlotte nodded. "It's not just money. The mountain chose us, Duke, me, and you. We're the keepers now." Duke whimpered softly, nuzzling Charlotte's leg. The glow beneath his fur pulsed like a heartbeat, in perfect rhythm with the central crystal. "I can feel it. The vein, the mine, it's alive, and it's asking us to protect it." Grace swallowed hard. "And the Doolins?" "They'll try to take it," Charlotte said grimly, "but they don't understand. They'll never survive it." The next day they returned to Hollow Ridge for what Charlotte called the final initiation. They descended the lower shaft, Duke leading the way, the glow from his veins lighting the path like a torch. When they reached the central chamber, the pulse of the mountain was overwhelming. The crystals bathed the room in blue light, and the water in the pool shimmered like liquid sapphire. Charlotte stepped forward, placing the shard into a hollow in the central crystal. The hum intensified, vibrating through her entire body. The shard melted into the formation, and the light flared across the chamber. Grace gasped. "It accepted it. It accepted you." Charlotte's mind swirled with visions, maps of hidden tunnels, veins of silver intertwined with the glowing mineral, and the faces of past guardians who had protected the mine. Duke barked, circling the chamber, and the veins in his fur grew brighter than ever. The mountain's heart.
That evening, as the sisters prepared for another descent into the lower mine, a sudden commotion in the trees above made Duke growl low. Charlotte grabbed a flashlight, sweeping the ridge. "Earl," Grace whispered, "they're here." From the tree line, Earl Doolin and his two men stepped into the clearing, wet from the rain, eyes cold and unyielding. Earl's hat was pulled low, shadowing his scarred face. "You really think you can just walk into Hollow Ridge and claim what's mine?" Earl growled. Charlotte stepped forward, hand on Duke. "You've already been warned. This mine is not for thieves." Earl laughed, a harsh sound that cut through the wind. "Thieves? We're inheriting what's ours. Your family never had the right to the Walker vein." Grace's fingers brushed against the glowing shard in the lockbox. The faint hum resonated in her chest. "You don't understand," she said. "This isn't just ore. The mountain, it's alive, and it's protecting itself." Earl's grin faltered. "Alive or dead, it doesn't matter. We'll take it anyway." Before they could react, the Doolins lunged forward. Duke barked and charged, teeth bared, but the men were fast and heavy. Charlotte and Grace scrambled, pushing past them toward the cabin. Inside the cabin, Charlotte grabbed the shard and held it tightly. She felt the pulse from Duke, the glow from the crystal, and the hum vibrating through the walls. "It's time," she said to Grace. "We can't fight them with brute force, but we can fight with the mountain." Grace's eyes widened. "You mean use the crystal?" Charlotte nodded. "It chose us. It will protect us, and itself." Outside, Earl kicked the door. "Step aside, girls! That shard belongs to me!" Charlotte closed her eyes, focusing on the pulse of the mountain. The shard in her hands began to glow brighter, the hum increasing until it seemed to shake the cabin. Duke barked, his fur ablaze with blue veins. Earl froze. What is that? Charlotte opened her eyes. It's the heart of Howled Ridge, and it won't let you take it. The walls of the cabin trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Outside, rocks along the slope shifted as if moving on their own. The Doolins scrambled to maintain their footing. Charlotte raised the shard higher. Blue light shot from it, illuminating the ridge. Duke leapt forward, growling, and the pulsing veins under his fur expanded like a shield of light. Earl's men yelped as the energy surged toward them, knocking them back against the forest floor. Trees bent with the force of the wave, and the ground vibrated like the heartbeat of the mountain itself. Earl scrambled to his feet, eyes wide with fear. "Stop it! Stop it!" Charlotte didn't answer. She felt the power of the mountain coursing through her, through Duke, and into the shard. She spoke without words, letting the energy of Howled Ridge flow. The Doolins, now disoriented, realized they had underestimated the mine's power. Rocks shifted to block their path, the ground beneath them trembling dangerously. With a final roar, Charlotte released the surge of light. The Doolins fell back, screaming as the forest itself seemed to push them away from the cabin. Branches struck them, mud swallowed their boots, and they were forced to retreat, humiliated and terrified. The sisters collapsed inside the cabin, breathing heavily. Duke licked Charlotte's hand, the glow in his fur softening to a calm pulse. Grace stared at Charlotte. Did we just do that? Charlotte nodded slowly, still clutching the shard. The mountain defended itself, and us. Grace looked toward the trees. Do you think they'll come back? Charlotte shook her head. They'll try, but the mountain knows we're the guardians now. We can't let them near it again. Duke barked softly, nudging the shard. Charlotte smiled. We're not alone in this. Not ever. Over the next days, the sisters reinforced the mine entrance and mapped secret escape routes. They learned to move with the pulse of the mountain, feeling its warnings in their bones. Duke became their sentinel, able to sense danger long before it arrived. The Walker vein, the glowing crystals, and the lower chamber, all of it was theirs to protect. But they knew that with great power came greater threats. Charlotte touched the shard and felt the knowledge flood her again. Tunnels, veins, guardians of the past, and warnings of greed. She looked at Grace. We're not just protecting a mine. We're protecting something ancient, something alive. And whatever comes next, we face it together. Grace nodded, placing her hand over Charlotte's. We've got Duke, we've got each other, and we've got the mountain. Outside, the storm clouds rolled over Bearclaw Ridge. Deep within Howled Ridge, the central crystal pulsed brighter than ever, as if aware of the sisters' promise. And far beyond the ridge, hidden in the shadows, Earl Doolin watched, swearing revenge. But for now, the mountain had spoken, and the Walker sisters had answered. Days passed in tense preparation. The Walker sisters fortified the mine and studied the glowing shard, learning to anticipate its pulsing rhythms. Duke, their steadfast companion, patrolled the ridge with heightened vigilance, his fur glowing faintly in the dark like a living lantern. Charlotte and Grace had begun to understand the mountain's language, subtle vibrations, whispers in the stone, and the pulsing blue light that responded to their emotions. Every time they approached the lower chamber, it felt alive, breathing and watching. This isn't just a mine, Charlotte said one evening, tracing her fingers over the lockbox. It's a living system, a heart, and we're inside its veins. Grace shivered. And the Doolins? Earl will come back. Charlotte nodded grimly. He'll try, but we're ready. The mountain isn't just protecting us, it's teaching us.
The next descent into the lower shaft was like entering another world. The air vibrated with the familiar hum, and the walls of the tunnel shimmered faintly, reflecting the pulsing light of Duke's fur and the shard. When they reached the central chamber, the transformation was staggering. The massive crystal formation at the heart of the mine pulsed stronger than ever, waves of blue light washing over the sisters. The pool in the center shimmered like liquid glass, and every vein in the chamber seemed connected, a network of energy spreading through the mountain. Charlotte stepped forward, her heart beating in sync with the pulsing light. "This is it," she whispered. "The heart of Howled Ridge." Duke barked, circling the pool, his glow intensifying. The mountain's pulse seemed to respond to him. Charlotte held the shard over the pool. The water rippled, and the hum grew to a steady, melodic resonance that filled the chamber. Grace's eyes widened. "Charlotte, it's showing us something." Charlotte looked closer and realized the pool reflected not just the chamber, but visions. Tunnels leading to hidden veins of glowing mineral, ancient tools, and sketches of miners who had protected the mine long ago. Then, faintly, a figure emerged. Samuel Walker, the sister's ancestor, standing within the crystal light. He's real," Grace whispered. Charlotte shook her head slowly. "Not exactly. The mountain is showing us a memory, a guardian from the past." The figure raised a hand and the water shimmered, revealing the mineral's potential. Structures that could generate light, energy, and heat, all from the crystal network itself. The Walker vein wasn't just valuable, it was revolutionary. Charlotte's eyes sparkled. "Grace, we could change everything. Not just the mine. We could power towns, help people." Grace nodded, awe on her face. "The mountain wants us to protect it, but maybe also to use it wisely." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the shaft. Dust and debris fell as Earl Doolin and his men stormed the entrance, shouting, "You think the mountain will save you? Give me the shard! Give me the vein!" Charlotte and Grace exchanged a glance. "Duke!" Charlotte shouted. Duke barked, and the veins in his fur flared blue bright. The chamber responded immediately. The central crystal pulsed, and energy surged through the veins in the walls. Rock shifted to block the intruders, while vibrations and sound disoriented them. Earl and his men stumbled, falling to their knees, shielding their eyes from the blinding blue light. Charlotte stepped forward, holding the shard high. The hum intensified, vibrating through the entire chamber. "Leave," Charlotte commanded. "The mountain will not forgive trespassers."
Heartbeat of the mountain, guiding them to hidden veins, secret tunnels, and energy-rich formations they hadn't dared explore before. Grace, though initially skeptical, had grown attuned to the rhythms as well. Together, the sisters had become more than guardians. They were conduits, able to manipulate the glowing crystal's energy to illuminate tunnels, move obstacles, and even send vibrations to communicate across the mine. But the Doolins had not given up. One stormy night, Duke's ears pricked. He growled low, circling the cabin. Charlotte and Grace followed his gaze to the ridge above. "Earl," Charlotte said grimly, "he's here." Lightning illuminated the tree line, revealing Earl Doolin and 4 of his men, carrying ropes, picks, and firearms. Their intent was clear: seize the mine by force. "Let him try," Grace said, her voice trembling but firm. Charlotte nodded. "Duke, stay close." The sisters raced to the lower shaft, descending into the mine. The hum of the mountain grew louder with every step, as if anticipating the confrontation. Duke led, his glow illuminating the path, veins of electric blue stretching along the walls like living conduits.
Earl's men had already reached the lower chamber, attempting to pry open sections of the glowing crystal formation. When Charlotte and Grace arrived, the blue light flared violently, casting the intruders in an eerie glow. "You're too late," Charlotte shouted. "Leave now or the mountain will stop you." Earl sneered. "We'll see about that." As he stepped forward, the ground beneath him trembled. The mountain responded to the intruders' greed and intent. Rocks shifted, dust fell from the ceiling, and the crystal veins pulsed faster, creating disorienting flashes of light. Grace took Charlotte's hand. "It's responding to us." Charlotte nodded. "We can channel it. Let's protect the heart." The sisters raised the shard high. Waves of pulsing blue light shot through the veins in the walls, overwhelming Earl and his men. The intruders screamed as the energy forced them backward. Rocks tumbled, forming barriers, and the vibrations disoriented them further. Duke barked, leaping into the middle of the chamber. His glow intensified, veins spreading across the floor, walls, and even ceiling. The Doolins tried to flee, but the mountain's pulse seemed to anticipate their movements, blocking exits and shaking the ground beneath them. Earl cursed and fired a shot, but it ricocheted harmlessly off the crystal walls, embedding in the stone. Charlotte realized the shard and the mountain were shielding them. "Grace!" Charlotte shouted. "Now!" The sisters focused, channeling the shard's energy through their bond with Duke. The central crystal flared, sending a wave of light throughout the chamber. The hum became a deafening resonance, vibrating through every inch of the mine. Earl and his men were thrown to the ground, forced to crawl back toward the surface. The mountain didn't strike with violence, but with unyielding force, defending its guardians and territory. When the chamber finally quieted, the Doolins had fled, humiliated and terrified. Charlotte and Grace stood in the glowing light, breathing heavily, Duke at their feet, veins of electric blue fading into a steady, calm pulse. The aftermath left the sisters exhausted but resolute. Charlotte knelt beside Duke, pressing her hand to his head. "We did it. We protected the heart." Grace looked around the chamber, awestruck. "And we're just getting started. There's so much here, potential beyond anything anyone could imagine." Charlotte smiled faintly. "The mountain chose us for a reason. It wants us to use it wisely, to protect, to guide, to heal." Over the following days, the sisters mapped the mine more extensively than any walker had ever dared to. They discovered veins capable of producing clean energy, hidden pockets of glowing mineral that could power entire towns, and chambers filled with stable, self-sustaining crystals. Charlotte began to understand the mountain's true gift. It wasn't just valuable, it was transformative. They could harness its energy to reshape their lives and the lives of others around them, but only if they remained vigilant and honorable. Duke's glowing veins became a constant guide, warning of danger, marking paths, and signaling changes in the crystal's energy. The sisters had become one with the mountain's pulse, guardians not only of wealth, but of life itself. As the sun set over Bearclaw Ridge, Charlotte and Grace stood at the entrance of the mine. The glow of the central crystal pulsed faintly through the forest, visible even from the ridge above. "We've protected it," Grace said softly. "But the Doolins, they'll never give up." Charlotte nodded. "Then we'll be ready. The mountain chose us, and it will continue to guide us. No one else can claim Hollow Ridge. Not now, not ever." Duke barked, tail wagging, and the hum of the mountain resonated through their bones, steady, strong, and unwavering. Together, the sisters faced the horizon, the heartbeat of Hollow Ridge coursing through them, and a promise echoing in their minds. The mine was theirs to guard, and its secret was safe with them. The first light of dawn painted Bearclaw Ridge in gold and silver. The Charlotte and Grace stood at the mouth of the Walker mine, Duke pacing at their feet, his glowing veins now a calm, steady rhythm. The mountain's hum pulsed beneath their boots, a heartbeat as old as Hollow Ridge itself.
For weeks they had protected the mine from the Doolins, explored hidden veins, and studied the glowing crystals. Each day brought new understanding, tunnels leading to vast chambers, energy-rich formations, and the central crystal that pulsed like the heart of the mountain. But today felt different. Charlotte glanced at the shard in her hand. "I can feel it. Something's about to be revealed." Grace nodded. "The mountain's showing us the final part of the secret." Descending into the lower chamber, the sisters followed Duke, his glow lighting the tunnels. The central crystal radiated light stronger than ever before, veins of energy spreading throughout the cavern. When they reached the chamber's heart, the water in the pool shimmered with almost liquid brilliance. Charlotte held the shard over the pool. The glow surged, illuminating the hidden mineral veins, the intricate crystalline formations, and something else. A previously unseen section of the chamber wall had shifted, revealing a narrow tunnel carved into solid rock. Faint blue light emanated from within. "The mountain, it wants us to see this," Charlotte whispered. Grace took a tentative step forward. "Do you think we're ready?" Charlotte nodded. "We don't have a choice. The mountain doesn't make mistakes." Inside the tunnel, the sisters found themselves in a cavern unlike any they had seen before. Walls and ceiling were covered with a crystalline lattice, glowing with a soft, pulsating blue light. The floor was embedded with veins of the same mineral, and the air thrummed with energy. At the center of the chamber lay a massive cache of the glowing mineral, hidden for generations. Charlotte's eyes widened. "Grace, do you realize what this is?" Grace's breath caught. "All of this, the veins, the formations, it's worth millions, maybe $22 million? Charlotte nodded. "And more than money. Energy, light, power. This could change everything." Duke barked, circling the cache, his glow intensifying as if affirming their discovery. Charlotte placed the shard in a hollow within the central crystal formation. The glow spread through the chamber, lighting every vein, illuminating tunnels and hidden pockets. The mountain's hum grew into a harmonious resonance, filling the cavern with a sound that was music and heartbeat. "It's perfect," Grace whispered. As the sisters explored the new cavern, they realized the mineral was unlike anything the world had ever seen. It could store energy, amplify light, and even generate warmth. The Walker vein was not only extraordinarily valuable, it was revolutionary. But the mountain's pulse reminded them of their duty. They were guardians now. They could harness its potential, but they could not exploit it recklessly. Charlotte looked at Grace, determination in her eyes. "We protect it, we learn from it, and we use it wisely. The mountain chose us for a reason." Grace nodded, placing her hand on the shard. "Together, always." Duke barked softly, glowing veins spreading across the floor like a living map, showing every hidden tunnel, every pocket of mineral. The mountain was alive, and it trusted them. Outside, the wind howled over Bearclaw Ridge. Far below, in the shadows of the forest, Earl Doolin and his men watched, defeated and furious. But they would not attempt another assault. The mountain had proven itself too powerful. Charlotte, Grace, and Duke emerged from the mine, carrying only knowledge and their bond with Hollow Ridge. The glowing mineral, hidden deep within the mountain, was safe. The Doolins would never find it, and the sisters would remain its guardians. Charlotte looked at the ridge, the sunrise glinting off the snow and crystal formations. "We found more than treasure. We found our legacy, and a future worth protecting." Grace smiled. $22 million, and more! The value isn't just in the mineral, it's in the mountain itself. Duke barked, nudging Charlotte's hand, veins of light glowing faintly in the morning sun. The pulse of Hollow Ridge was now part of their lives, and they knew they would never be alone again. Charlotte took a deep breath.
feeling the hum of the mountain beneath her feet. "We'll protect this place. No one will ever misuse it, not while we're here." Grace put her arm around her sister. "We're the guardians, and we always will be." As the three of them looked out over Bearclaw Ridge, the wind carried the faint hum of Hollow Ridge, a song of life, power, and secrets safe in the hands of those worthy to guard them. The Walker sisters had inherited a collapsing mine, but what their dog had uncovered was worth far more than money. It was a living legacy, a treasure of the mountain itself. $22 million, yes, but priceless in its true power. And in the heart of Hollow Ridge, the mountain pulsed contentedly, knowing its guardians had arrived. The first light of dawn painted Bearclaw Ridge in gold and silver. Charlotte and Grace stood at the mouth of the Walker mine, Duke pacing at their feet, his glowing veins now a calm, steady rhythm. The mountain's hum pulsed beneath their boots, a heartbeat as old as Hollow Ridge itself. For weeks, they had protected the mine from the Doolins, explored hidden veins, and studied the glowing crystals. Each day brought new understanding, tunnels leading to vast chambers, energy-rich formations, and the central crystal that pulsed like the heart of the mountain. Charlotte glanced at the shard in her hand. "I can feel it. Something's about to be revealed." Grace nodded. "The mountain showing us the final part of the secret." Descending into the lower chamber, the sisters followed Duke, his glow lighting the tunnels. The air itself seemed alive, vibrating with energy. Every step sent faint ripples through the veins in the walls. When they reached the central chamber, the transformation was staggering. The massive crystal formation at the heart of the mine pulsed stronger than ever, veins of energy spreading throughout the cavern. Charlotte held the shard over the pool. The glow surged, illuminating hidden mineral veins, the intricate crystalline formations, and something else. A previously unseen section of the chamber wall had shifted, revealing a narrow tunnel carved into solid rock. Faint blue light emanated from within. "The mountain, it wants us to see this," Charlotte whispered. Grace took a tentative step forward. "Do you think we're ready?" Charlotte nodded. "We don't have a choice. The mountain doesn't make mistakes." Inside the tunnel, the sisters discovered a cavern unlike any they had seen before. Walls and ceiling were covered in a crystalline lattice, glowing with a soft, pulsating blue light. The floor was embedded with veins of the same mineral, and the air thrummed with energy. At the center of the cavern lay a massive cache of the glowing mineral, hidden for generations. Charlotte's eyes widened. "Grace, do you realize what this is?" Grace's breath caught. "All of this, the veins, the formations, it's worth millions, maybe $22 million?" Charlotte nodded. "And more than money. Energy, light, power. This could change everything." Duke barked, circling the cache, his glow intensifying as if affirming their discovery. Charlotte placed the shard in a hollow within the central crystal formation. The glow surged, illuminating hidden mineral veins, the intricate crystalline formations, and something else. A previously unseen section of the chamber wall had shifted, revealing a narrow tunnel carved into solid rock. Faint blue light emanated from within. "The mountain, it wants us to see this," Charlotte whispered. Grace took a tentative step forward. "Do you think we're ready?" Charlotte nodded. "We don't have a choice. The mountain doesn't make mistakes." Inside the tunnel, the sisters discovered a cavern unlike any they had seen before. Walls and ceiling were covered in a crystalline lattice, glowing with a soft, pulsating blue light. The floor was embedded with veins of the same mineral, and the air thrummed with energy. At the center of the cavern lay a massive cache of the glowing mineral, hidden for generations. Charlotte's eyes widened. "Grace, do you realize what this is?" Grace's breath caught.
All of this, the veins, the formations, it's worth millions. Maybe $22 million? Charlotte nodded. And more than money. Energy, light, power. This could change everything. Duke barked, circling the cache, his glow intensifying as if affirming their discovery. Charlotte placed the shard in a hollow within the central crystal formation. The glow surged, illuminating hidden mineral veins, the intricate crystalline formations, and something else. A previously unseen section of the chamber wall had shifted, revealing a narrow tunnel carved into solid rock. Faint blue light emanated from within. "The mountain, it wants us to see this," Charlotte whispered. Grace took a tentative step forward. "Do you think we're ready?" Charlotte nodded. "We don't have a choice. The mountain doesn't make mistakes." Inside the tunnel, the sisters discovered a cavern unlike any they had seen before. Walls and ceiling were covered in a crystalline lattice, glowing with a soft, pulsating blue light. The floor was embedded with veins of the same mineral, and the air thrummed with energy. At the center of the cavern lay a massive cache of the glowing mineral, hidden for generations. Charlotte's eyes widened. "Grace, do you realize what this is?" Grace's breath caught. "All of this, the veins, the formations, it's worth millions. Maybe $22 million? Charlotte nodded. "And more than money. Energy, light, power. This could change everything." Duke barked, circling the cache, his glow intensifying as if affirming their discovery. Charlotte placed the shard in a hollow within the central crystal formation. The glow surged, illuminating hidden mineral veins, the intricate crystalline formations, and something else. A previously unseen section of the chamber wall had shifted, revealing a narrow tunnel carved into solid rock. Faint blue light emanated from within. The sisters discovered a cavern unlike any they had seen before. Walls and ceiling were covered in a crystalline lattice, glowing with a soft, pulsating blue light. The floor was embedded with veins of the same mineral, and the air thrummed with energy. At the center of the cavern lay a massive cache of the glowing mineral, hidden for generations. Charlotte's eyes widened. "Grace, do you realize what this is?" Grace's breath caught. "All of this, the veins, the formations, it's worth millions. Maybe $22 million? Charlotte nodded. "And more than money. Energy, light, power. This could change everything." Duke barked, circling the cache, his glow intensifying as if affirming their discovery. Charlotte placed the shard in a hollow within the central crystal formation. The glow surged, illuminating hidden mineral veins, the intricate crystalline formations, and something else. A previously unseen section of the chamber wall had shifted, revealing a narrow tunnel carved into solid rock. Faint blue light emanated from within. "The mountain, it wants us to see this," Charlotte whispered. Grace took a tentative step forward. "Do you think we're ready?" Charlotte nodded. "We don't have a choice. The mountain doesn't make mistakes." Inside the tunnel, the sisters discovered a cavern unlike any they had seen before. Walls and ceiling were covered in a crystalline lattice, glowing with a soft, pulsating blue light. The floor was embedded with veins of the same mineral, and the air thrummed with energy. At the center of the cavern lay a massive cache of the glowing mineral, hidden for generations. Charlotte's eyes widened. "Grace, do you realize what this is?"